If you go to a Christian church and you hear a sermon on the Good Samaritan, and you come out and you're not angry at the minister or the preacher, you may want to look to see if you can somehow get a refund. The point is, and this is the reason I like the title queer, because in the English we rarely have any words that begin with QU, is it really is a wonderful word for strange. Now, I'm not referring to queer theory as in with the LGBT community, but rather about making the ordinary strange. Because unless something gets jarred in our head, we tend to take things for granted after a while. Much like the parable of the Good Samaritan, who, in the end, the Jewish scribe, the religious theologian, can't even begin to say that word Samaritan, let alone good, as the best person in the parable. It is too jarring, too visceral, too much. And that is the point of card study. The point of card study is to take things and take your sense of reality and knock it off, skew it, screw with it, mess with it. A book of readings that takes on the New Testament, the Christian scriptures that I haven't read that I want to, is the Cotton Patch Gospels, where it talks about Jesus' Good Friday lynching and the shame of the news, because the cross is often romanticized. It's in the first 2-3 centuries of the church, Jesus was never shown as being on a cross. It was too shameful that the leader was executed in the most shameful way of public executions. He wasn't even shown as having a beard. He was clean-shaven, leading crowds, and eating. These were the propaganda pieces, if you will, that they liked. A cross was a shameful and ugly thing. So the point is, we need to sometimes take our ideas of reality, things that we can take for granted, and knock them off. It's probably no surprise that the deck that speaks to me the most is the Thoth. The systems-based approach is what I really groove on. Yet, you notice I take a lot of time to figure out these other decks because it enlarges and messes with my view of reality. It helps me get outside of my own boxes. As a tarot reader, you need to continually be doing that. One of the easiest schools for interpretation is the intuitive school. It's also the hardest, because in reality it means you have to been so therapized, you have been so upset with your own lack of self-evolution that you are continually examining yourself, navel-gazing every moment about your inability to self-actualize. The amount of personal self-work and spiritual work and loving, going up and kissing the people that physically beat you, that is required of it almost. I'm exaggerating, I'm sure, but you get the point. It really requires a lot of work out of a person in self-work, in personal levels of ethical morality and nonviolence and love and forbearance and forgiveness that frankly is beyond most people that practice it, and that's why it often comes off in one of two ways. Either very slipshod or it occasionally hits like thunder. It's a very powerful style, but again, the amount of work required is very similar to like card study. You need to be continually looking at your life through different lenses. Ask yourself, how do ultra-conservative religious people look at me? Oh, they hate me. Why do they hate me? What am I doing to promote that hatred? What can I do to bring reconciliation? To ask such questions requires such maturity. And again, that is the kind of things that's also required, and that card study does, is it forces you to look at different schools of thought that you would never consider. Maturity is sometimes picking up and reading the books that you disagree with. We can surround ourselves with news and books and all kinds of things of everything we absolutely agree with. And so I think the newest point of growth is running into those places and working with those things that we do not agree with, that we cannot stand. That is the stretch that we need for our personal evolution. And while it's not as required as much as it is with the intuitive school, because you have to keep yourself out of it, or else you just find, some intuitive practitioners, gee, why is it everybody I work with has mommy issues, like me? Doesn't maybe have that relentless sort of personal work aspect, but it is there as well. And so these are aspects that are behind all of card study and all of this kind of work, whether you do it for other people, yourself, whether you do this professionally or not. It is in a certain sense a very high calling and requires a lot out of you. There's nothing easy about it whatsoever.